We are live. So this is awesome. So we are super excited for us to really dive into this new series that we've put together because this is something that we realize in our own space is so needed. So for those who are new to us, new to our space, new to this whole series, which is something we're super excited about. But for those, I am Rachel Brooks and I am a entrepreneur, founder, author, podcaster, and speaker. And all of this really, when we come back to harnessing, who we are as our true selves and the works that we do, that the integral core foundation is coming back to who you are, finding your true self, finding your true purpose, and reconnecting with yourself at this point, whether you're just starting out, you're in business for a few years, or maybe you're at a crossroads. And this is really a series that Amy and I have put together because it's near and dear to our hearts, but it's also a season that we have walked through. And, to be honest, sometimes we continue to walk through this because the paths do get windy and they go in all different directions. But the beauty of that is that you can always come back to the one true thing, and that is yourself. Amy, I'd love for you to introduce yourself as well and a little bit about why you chose to join me on the series.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited for this. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Amy Traugh. I'm a business strategist. I am an author and I host the Motivated CEO podcast. And I just love having these raw and real conversations with women. Rachel and I, this whole series just kind of happened on a whim. It was one of those, we kept having these conversations. It was like, you know what? If you and I feel like this, I'm sure that there's others that are also resonating with this because we hear a lot about the early stages of entrepreneurship, but we don't hear a lot about, okay, well, what new that, you're in it. This is your mainstream of income. How are we navigating these things? Because new challenges are always arising. And it's not easy. And I think social media really kind of skews the perception of reality for so many. And the conversations we were having were so good that we're like, you know what? We just need to like put a mic on this and broadcast this out because these are topics that are very relevant, but we're not hearing many people talk about them. So I am super excited to be here and to just have others be able to listen in and let us know, like, hey, I'm going through this too. I'm resonating with this because it can feel lonely. It can come up with like, a lot of those subconscious beliefs like start huddling up like, am I worthy? Am I cut out for this? And we're here to tell you that, yeah, you are. And we've worked through this too. And it's a messy journey, but we're right here alongside of you.
Yes, I love that you brought up the whole, it's the aspect of the journey. And to if you are new to both of us or have been following either one of us, you see that we have our businesses, right? So we're both founders, we're both podcasters, and we've both been in this entrepreneur space for me, I think going on close to almost over a decade. And, founding multiple ventures to startups to brands and personal branding and all the things that kind of coincide with that. And I think that, you touched on that point about the journey, right? So it's like we can get lost in the weeds in the woods and all that stuff, but we can also look at it from that perspective where if we're seeing other people doing the things that we aspire to achieve, there steps in that comparison. And even though we can have like our blinders and like, okay, well, I'm not going to get into that space, but we also can't help fall victim to that because as we're on this journey, we also want to have some form of validation and approval to know, like, are we on the right path? Am I making a difference? Am I on track? Like, there's a lot of things, especially with business when it comes into, the strategies to the workflows and the operations and the KPIs, which is definitely Amy's wheelhouse. But then when it also comes into like the personal growth element to knowing who you are, your values, why you started this, digging deep into the core foundation and your purpose and your identity, that's where I come in. And so when we got to talking about our strengths and like the areas of our expertise and the things that really light us up, we couldn't help but to say like, wow, let's do something about this because in tandem, it's this complementary aspect of it. And when we look at business and life, it's not just doing one thing, as I say, like do one thing and only one thing and do it well, but it's like, how do you do life? How do you do business? So it's about finding that intersection that helps us align our purpose, our passion, and our identities into who we are that we can go confidently out there into the world and create a difference, create a business, make an impact. And those are the different things that, are something that we want to keep at the forefront of our journey, because when we have that as part of the vision and the focal point, we can now look at that instead of others to help us stay true to who we are, find that purpose, dig deep into that intention and that why, but also your core identity of who you are and who you need to be in this season or in this moment, but then also open for that growth and opportunity for the person that you are becoming. Because as you grow, your business grows and there's this constant evolution, which I think is so important to recognize, but also keep that in mind because as you're growing your business, sometimes you don't have to go back, but you're leading people through this journey with you. And that's the beauty is that you get to redefine who you are. You get to redefine what success means to you. You get to redefine your vision, mission, and values as you constantly grow. And one of the things, the biggest lessons that I have learned throughout this, I guess, tenure of it is being flexible, being okay with change, with growth, the transformation that you as the leader and the individual behind your business and your brand, and keeping that open because then it keeps life interesting. It keeps the flexibility. It keeps inspiration, creativity, and joy coming into your life and not feeling like you are just digging deep into only the work aspect of it. And so, yeah, like the entrepreneurial journey, to be honest, it's a roller coaster. It's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of lows, and then there's the highs that are so worth it. And I think that from my perspective, I don't see enough of that in the online space. And I wanted to help peel back the layers and just keep it real, raw, and relatable. And that's really the context that I share on the podcast, the Confident Woman podcast. And the same with Amy. So when we got to talking, we're like, this has to be something that we're committing to really peeling back the layers and showing the behind the scenes things and talking about some of those hardships and the realness of it. Because again, it's not always what you see online.
Exactly. We'd love to talk about the highest of the highs, but what happens during those low points?
Yeah.
Because those are the points when it is easier to give up. And so many people do. I mean, you look at the statistics and it shows the failure rate of businesses within the first, 3 years. It's crazy. But it's because it is such a personal development journey. And that's something I wasn't prepared for when I became an entrepreneur. I was like, holy cow, like talk about like all of those insecurities. Like, what am I doing? Like, because we have to be a beginner again.
Mhm.
And we're not used to that, especially as you're going through life. If you come from a prior career, I mean, I worked in healthcare for 16 years. So now I was having to be a beginner again. But what I lost sight on was, what is that true purpose? And that's something you are amazing at unpacking with people is really honing in on what is your true purpose. I think that's really step one and such a foundational element. And it's one of those that I don't think you just wake up one day and realize, oh, this is my purpose.
Mhm.
It is a messy, messy process of trial and error because I've evolved. I am not the same person that I was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I have evolved. So as I have evolved as a person, my purpose had gotten clearer and clearer. So it's been an evolution. It's been through trial and error. It's been through being willing to get it wrong in order to learn those lessons that I needed, in order to figure out, do I truly want? And part of that, it's really hard because we're noisy, right? So
Oh,
we
yeah.
start to adopt everyone else's goals as our own goals. And we lose sight of that purpose because it becomes muddled in with all these messages that we're hearing from everyone else. So I would love to know from you, like, what's helped you discover your purpose?
Right. And you touched on so many notes there. And I think that that's so true because, again, kind of looking at the three different aspects, whether you're just starting out, you're in business, or you're at those crossroads, the one thing that will always remain a constant in all those variables is you. It's you. I mean, are you committing yourself to that personal growth and development journey? I remember one of my clients had asked, as they're kind of starting out, and they said, well, what is the best investment for my business? I said, hands down, it's self-investment. You have to invest in yourself. If you are the business, you are the brand, you are the machine behind the operations. Like this is something that we constantly have to refine and sharpen and, go into the personal growth, learn more, pick up a new skill, something to constantly refine and sharpen those skill sets and the learning and the growing aspect of it. But the beauty of that again is being open because it's like, wow, if I could do this, what can't I do? Right. So now that builds that esteem and that confidence that as you're going through this journey, there's going to be points again where you're just like, man, I feel like my best and most confident self. I'm sitting on top of this mountain. I'm like, wow, look at how far I've come. But then also on the flip side of it, you're also going to experience those peaks and valleys. And in those peaks and valleys, again, keeping that open mindset is where you're going to really learn the lessons. And it's not just so much of the lessons of business, but it's the lessons of life. And that's how you apply it to your business. Because if we're in business, our number one person or asset that we serve is our clients, right? It's the people. So if you know how to people you could people them, right? So it's this evolution of like constant growth, personal growth, development. And as you become better, your business becomes better. And, in tandem, there's all these different components to business and entrepreneurship and leadership. And, you're going to see that out there in the online space. But if you don't know how you recognize the strengths in your leadership and in your business, that's where it can get really noisy. It can get really muddy. And that's where we can lose sight of who we are because we can see other people. Well, they're in a similar space. So maybe I'm that thing, or maybe I need to go do what they're doing, or that's the successful blueprint that I need to go model after. And just keeping that at the forefront of your mind because it's like, well, how do we keep that at the forefront and also maintaining our true purpose and identity? And again, comes back to who who you are really, like to the core. What is your purpose? And if you don't know what purpose is, I like to say it's at the intersection of passion and purpose. It's that middle point that's intersection of like, your diagram or Venn diagram. But when you're looking at that, I look at it as what are the two things that light you up or piss you off? And those are passion, right? That fuels and drives that purpose. And when you have that momentum and that fuel behind you, whether it's positively making that difference in the impact or passionately positive and like, I got to go do something about that. There's this drive, and that becomes this intrinsic motivator that really goes deep into the emotional component of why you do what you do. So let's not lose sight of that. And even though other people might be doing something similar, their motivator is completely different than yours because they have a different life experience and they have a whole different lens and a perspective of how they view and perceive the world and themselves and their abilities to go out there and make a difference and an impact in this world.
Yeah. And I really think that discovering your purpose, taking the time to do that will really collapse time for you. And it's a process that takes work. It takes a lot of work to become self-aware, to develop that emotional intelligence of, okay, this is how I tick. You know what? And there's nothing wrong with, I used to judge myself for, well, I'm not doing X, Y, and Z that everybody else is doing. But I've come to realize like that didn't fire me up. That wasn't my purpose because when I'm living my life for someone else, I lost sight of me. But in coming back to me and really investing in myself, it opened so many doors and different avenues because so often in life, there's opportunities right in front of us, but we are blind to them because we're so focused on our limitations. We're so focused on what everyone else is doing. So step one to creating a business, a life, a legacy that you love is really rediscovering what is that purpose? What are you here for? And it it's messy. It is a messy, messy process. I still remember. I mean, it took me almost like 40 years of life to figure this out. So I still remember the day where it hit me. Things weren't aligned. And it was for the first time in my life that I realized, you know what? I get this one shot at life. I don't get another shot. I'm going to start showing up and living this day to the fullest because nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. And when I started leaning into myself, leaning into what do I truly want, that's when that purpose got clearer and clearer. And now because I had clarity on my purpose, now it keeps me going. Now I have that deep rooted why. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I know why I'm going to show up on the hard days. That clarity of purpose is such a game changer.
Yes, clarity, purpose, getting real and raw with yourself, having those honest conversations and digging deep. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, then your business doesn't feel in alignment or congruent with who you are. And you might feel that internal resistance or like a little bit of stripe or angst or so. And that's sometimes because it's like our internal alarm systems are telling us this isn't the path that we're on. We need to recalibrate, reset, rediscover. And a lot of times we're afraid to do that because we feel like it's a setback. We feel like we're starting over. And there's some truth to that. Yes, we are starting over, but we're not starting over from square one. We might have just, had to take a step or two back to reassess the view, to reassess where we're going and getting that clarity and realigning and readjusting our sales per se to correct the course so that we're back on the path. And again, that path will change as your purpose consistently grows and evolves and becomes more clearer, but there's that vision, right? So when you're in business, you created something in your mind, right? So it's a vision that is set out for you. And keeping that at the forefront as your North Star, that becomes your compass. So again, looking ahead and saying, okay, that's where I'm going, but where am I at today? And who do I need to become to get there? And so helping to close that gap, who is the person that needs to be that you need to become that highest and best version of yourself that needs to be that leader to execute the vision, to step fully into that vision. And even though there might be that disconnect where you're like, wow, that person seems so far off from who I am today. Well, that's exactly where you need to be because now it's giving you the legwork and the formula per se, your own blueprint to confidently step forward into that. And this is what life does. It tests us, it shapes us, it shifts us. It's always teaching us something different. So as we're growing in life, we're growing as an individual. And that's part of those like growing pains per se, especially in business, because it's like, yeah, I'm, the business, right? So the person behind the business, yes, I'm doing all these like growing pains, but you watch as the evolution of your business transpires because of the work that you're doing internally and you're seeing externally the rewards and the results. So it's kind of like the fruits of our labor are coming to fruition and here we are. So I think that, this is really just a great context for us to jump into on our first of our series here. We have so much to unpack, but we really wanted to talk about those main points about finding your purpose, aligning it with your vision, your mission, your values. And we'll talk about that even further throughout the series, but holding true to who you are and not lose sight of who you are and where you're going. Just because other people are doing something similar to you does not mean that there isn't any room or space for you in this business or in this world. So you have a unique gift and it's something that only you can bring to this world. And so when we start digging deep again, we discover it, we step into it, and we become it. So, Amy, I'd love for you just to share a few closing remarks before we pop off here, and just super excited for this series to continue.
Yeah, it's really about, slowing down to speed up in life. Because if you're barreling down the highway 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, that's not going to get you to your destination faster. That's not going to get you the results that you desire faster. So it feels counterintuitive, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to slow down. But really taking the time to work through this, really taking the time to rediscover your purpose is so key. And then next week, we're going to get into a discussion on confidence, having that faith in yourself, having that true belief within confidence. I always used to think it was something you either had or you didn't,
Mhm.
right?
One
But
of those Maybelline commercials. Maybe she's born with it.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it really comes from within. And I forget who said this, but really confidence is having the courage to start before you feel ready. Really having that belief, that faith in yourself to get started. So I'm really excited for this series. I am super excited for our conversation next week, but please know that if you're struggling right now trying to find your purpose, it's okay. It it's a process. Get quiet, turn down the noise, and just keep going. You will find it.
Yes, awesome. So many takeaways here. So if this resonates, definitely let us know because we're going to continue this series and we want to build it around the content and from your feedback as well, because this again, it's a collective journey. Even though this might be a personal journey that we're on, building our businesses and our personal brands, and even just as a personal growth journey, but we are not alone and we are not meant to do life alone. And so this is the journey that we are taking together. So thank you for joining.